As the world outside slowly fades into quiet, and the last golden rays of evening fall behind the rooftops of ancient Rome, we invite you to a journey unlike any other. Tonight, you will walk through the silent halls of the smallest country on earth, a city of secrets, of prayers whispered over centuries, of stone walls that have seen emperors, saints, and shadows alike. The Vatican. It is more than just a place. It is a world within a world. A keeper of sacred traditions and forgotten mysteries. As the candles flicker and the stars rise over the Tiber River, let your mind drift through time. Breathe deeply. Imagine the cool marble floors beneath your feet, the sound of distant bells echoing through ancient streets, and the rustle of pages in a vast, hidden library. This is not a history lesson. This is a story, soft and strange, gentle and filled with echoes. We will speak of sacred tombs beneath the basilica, of books locked away in silence for centuries, of symbols etched into stone, and legends passed from tongue to tongue like a secret prayer. Let your body rest. Let your thoughts wander. Long before the Vatican became the spiritual heart of the Catholic world, the land it occupies held a very different kind of presence. In ancient times, the area across the Tiber River was known as the Ager Vaticanus, the Vatican Fields. It lay just outside the sacred boundary of the old city of Rome, the Pomerium, and for centuries it was considered marginal, even mysterious. Swamps and vineyards stretched across the land, broken by the occasional villa, burial site, or temple. It was a quiet place, watched over by Roman gods, and perhaps older spirits still. The name Vaticanus may itself hold a secret. Some scholars believe it comes from vaticinia, prophecies, or vates, a word for seers and prophets. Others link it to a long-forgotten Etruscan deity, Vaticanus, the god of the infant's first cry. Whispers of voices before speech. Prophecy before scripture. One might imagine the air here always held a different weight, a place between the known and the unknown. By the 1st century AD, this humble land would witness a dramatic turn. Emperor Caligula chose the Vatican Hill as the site of a grand circus, a chariot racetrack meant to rival any in the empire. The Circus of Nero, as it would later be known, stretched in long, echoing curves, with marble seating and towering obelisks. But it was not chariots alone that made this land infamous. According to tradition, in the mid-1st century, during Nero's brutal persecution of Christians, the Apostle Peter was crucified here, not as a triumphant leader, but upside down by his own request, feeling himself unworthy to die as Christ had. His followers took his body and quietly buried it in a nearby necropolis, beneath what would eventually become the altar of St. Peter's Basilica. And so, the land that once echoed with wheels and crowds became a place of graves, of silence, of something sacred blooming in secrecy. As the Roman Empire shifted, faltered, and fractured, the memory of Peter's martyrdom remained. Even after Christianity was legalized and embraced under Emperor Constantine, it was this very hill, this marginal, swampy, whispered place, that was chosen to build the first great basilica in Peter's name. That original structure stood for over 1,000 years, becoming a magnet for pilgrims. Beneath it, the ancient tombs remained, and above them, a city of faith slowly took shape. But the Vatican was not yet a country. It had no walls of its own, no flag, no status as an independent state. For centuries, it was a spiritual capital with a fluid, uncertain political identity. Popes ruled lands, but not this one as a sovereign nation. Still, the soil remembered. The roots of power grew deep. Beneath each stone, beneath each chapel and corridor, the Vatican held on to its ancient memory of prophecy, of martyrdom, of voices that spoke before history began. And so, before we can understand the grandeur of what the Vatican would become, we must remember what it once was. A place of edges. A land of in-betweens. A hill where silence carried more power than any crown. Beneath the polished marble floors of St. Peter's Basilica, hidden from the gaze of tourists and worshippers, lies another world, older, darker, and far more mysterious. This is the Vatican necropolis, a vast underground city of the dead. For centuries, few even knew it existed. And for many more, it was considered off-limits, a sacred silence beneath the grandeur of faith. It was only in the mid-20th century, during renovations ordered by Pope Pius XII, that excavations truly began. As workers carefully peeled back layers of history, they uncovered something remarkable, a sprawling Roman necropolis, untouched for nearly 2 millennia. Tombs built by noble families, inscribed with Latin prayers and decorated with ancient frescoes. Bones resting in quiet arrangements, sealed away from the light for generations. And at the center of it all, beneath the high altar of St. Peter's, they found something even more astonishing, a small niche, marked by early Christian symbols, and fragments of human bones believed by many to belong to the Apostle Peter himself. Could it be? Was this truly the resting place of one of Christ's closest followers? The Vatican has never officially confirmed the bones' authenticity, but the symbolism is powerful. Pilgrims now walk above this sacred core, often unaware of the ancient silence just beneath their steps. But the secrets don't end there. Beneath the basilica is a network of tunnels, chambers, and hidden rooms that few ever see. Some house relics, pieces of the true cross, ancient scrolls, vials of oil said to come from saints. Others are filled with artworks too fragile or controversial for public display. There's the Scavi, the archaeological route beneath St. Peter's, open only to a limited number of visitors each day. It winds through ancient Roman mausoleums, each telling the quiet story of lives long forgotten. Families, tradesmen, and early Christians buried here, their names fading on stone, their faith carved into the earth. Then there are whispers, stories passed through generations, of sealed chambers never opened, of documents so sensitive they remain unread. Some claim that deep beneath the apostolic palace lies a vault, a protected archive of relics, texts, and secrets collected over centuries. Could there be scrolls from the lost library of Alexandria? Could there be records of gospels never canonized, or maps of lands long vanished? Of course, many of these ideas drift into the realm of legend. But within the Vatican, where history and mystery walk hand in hand, even the most fantastic tales seem to hum with possibility. And above it all, the modern city buzzes. Lights glow in the windows of the Apostolic Palace. Footsteps echo in the Sistine Chapel. But below, the air stays cool. Time feels slower. The quiet is deeper than sleep. It is said that a person who walks the necropolis can feel it, the weight of centuries, the eyes of history. Every stone, every bone, every candle flicker beneath the basilica tells a story, of death and resurrection, of loss and remembrance. The Vatican is not built on empty ground. It rises from memory, from graves, from secrets too sacred for the sun. And so, beneath the grandeur of gold and glory, the true heart of the Vatican beats quietly in the dark. A sacred hush, a hidden city, a map of eternity written in stone. Not far from the bustling heart of the Vatican lies one of the most secretive places on earth, the Vatican Apostolic Archive, formerly known as the Secret Archives. Now, when people hear the word secret, their imagination tends to run wild, with tales of conspiracies, hidden prophecies, and forbidden books. And perhaps in this case, that's not entirely unwarranted. Because the truth is, very few people in the world are allowed inside. This archive is not just a dusty old library. It's a treasure trove of over 85 kilometers of shelving, filled with more than 35,000 volumes. Documents that span over 12 centuries of human history. Some say there are letters written by Michelangelo, notes from Galileo's trial, the excommunication of Martin Luther, and diplomatic messages from emperors long vanished into the folds of time. But what makes the archive so mysterious isn't just what's inside, it's what might be inside, and what we're not allowed to see. The entrance to the archive is grand, located within the Vatican walls. Once past the large bronze doors, authorized scholars may descend into the maze of chambers and corridors, under strict supervision. No photos. No books may leave. Only a small number of pre-approved documents may be studied at any time. The rules are precise. The protection is immense. What are they guarding so carefully? There are stories. Oh, there are always stories. Some say the archive holds the chronovisor, a mythical device allegedly built in the 1950s by a Benedictine monk and scientists under the Vatican's direction. According to legend, the chronovisor could see into the past, projecting historical events like a hologram. It was said to be used to witness the crucifixion of Christ, the speeches of ancient emperors, and even the lost days of Atlantis. Others speak of long-lost gospels, accounts of Christ's life that were deemed too controversial or mystical to be included in the Bible. Perhaps written by Mary Magdalene, or Judas, or even Jesus himself. Then there are tales of correspondence between the Church and early astronomers, discussing celestial events not yet understood, eclipses mistaken for omens, comets seen as divine punishment, or even records of strange lights in the sky. Of course, the Vatican denies these theories. Officially, the archive contains only historical church documents. Important. Absolutely. Mysterious. Only to those looking for mystery. But for many, it's the gaps that are most intriguing. For example, there's a period known as the Dark Centuries, from the 8th to the 11th centuries, where few documents exist. What happened during that time? Why such silence in such a deeply documented institution? And then there are letters marked as missing. Files listed but unavailable. Pages catalogued but nowhere to be found. Are they lost to time? Or hidden with purpose? Even the archive's modern history holds secrets. It wasn't until 1881 that it was opened to select scholars. Before that, it was completely sealed, its contents known only to popes and their closest advisors. And even now, though a few more researchers are granted access, less than 1% of the entire archive has ever been seen by the public. The rest? Locked behind reinforced doors, guarded by tradition, waiting in silence. But perhaps that's the point. The Vatican Archive is not just a library. It is a memory vault, one that contains not only the official story of the Church, but the shadowed chapters as well. It reminds us that history is not always told in full view. Some of it sleeps in the dark, carefully wrapped in linen, bound in leather, shelved behind keys made of gold and time. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, imagine the whispering halls of the archive, the distant echo of pages turning, the rustle of a forgotten parchment, and perhaps in your dreams, you might walk through those hidden corridors and glimpse a truth no one else has seen. As you wander through the Vatican, the stones themselves seem to whisper ancient truths. The architecture is not just grand, it's deliberate. Every curve, Every mosaic, every column appears to carry a message, one that has been passed down through symbols, hidden in plain sight. From the vast expanse of St. Peter's Square, with its symmetrical colonnades that seem to embrace the world, to the gilded ceilings of the Sistine Chapel, adorned by Michelangelo's divine visions, the Vatican is a living language carved into marble and gold. But what do these symbols truly mean? Let's begin with St. Peter's Basilica, a masterpiece of sacred geometry. The floor plan itself is based on a Latin cross, an architectural embodiment of Christ's crucifixion. Yet beneath the surface, quite literally, lies another layer of symbolism. The Vatican necropolis, an underground city of tombs and passageways, older than the basilica above it. There, beneath the altar, is said to rest the bones of St. Peter, the Apostle, the rock upon which the church was built. Whether one believes in the physical authenticity or not, the placement sends a powerful message, that all of Catholicism rises from this single, buried point, an invisible heart, deep within the earth. Above ground, symbols continue to unfold. The obelisk at the center of the square, originally brought from Egypt, is not merely decoration. It is one of 13 Egyptian obelisks found throughout Rome, many placed at specific sites by the Church. For some, it's a symbol of the Church's triumph over paganism. For others, it's a quiet acknowledgement of ancient wisdom, that Christianity, too, carries echoes of civilizations long past. Then there are the keys of St. Peter, often depicted crossed beneath a papal tiara. These aren't just religious emblems, they also align with the ancient concept of gateways, of secret knowledge, of access to divine truths that lie just beyond our world. Gold and silver, one key for the heavens, one for the earth. Even the Sistine Chapel, so often admired for its beauty, contains layers of mystery. Michelangelo, it said, hid anatomical references in his frescoes. The human brain in the creation of Adam, a spinal cord in the separation of light from darkness. Was it a message? A rebellion? Or simply the artist embedding his own philosophy into the ceiling of the sacred? The Vatican's walls are also filled with labyrinthine symbolism. Spirals in floor mosaics, representing spiritual journeys. Suns and moons. Stars with unusual numbers of points. Creatures from the Book of Revelation. Maps of the heavens as they were understood centuries ago. And mathematical codes woven into sacred art. For centuries, esoteric thinkers, from alchemists to Freemasons, have studied Vatican architecture, convinced that the stones hide messages only the initiated can read. They argue that knowledge was encoded into the design, passed on like a riddle, meant to endure long after the builders were gone. Of course, to church officials, such theories are often dismissed as fanciful or speculative. The beauty is symbolic, yes, but not secretive. Still, as with the archives, it's often not what's admitted, but what's left unspoken that sparks the imagination. One might ask, why does a faith built on humility and light surround itself with such dense iconography? Why so many references to power, authority, mystery? Why the echo of older civilizations in the very symbols of Christianity? Maybe the answer lies in the nature of belief itself. Symbols are the language of the soul. They speak when words fall short. They hold emotion, history, memory. And in the Vatican, where time folds like parchment and meaning drips from every stone, the symbols whisper not only of divinity, but of humankind's eternal longing for it. So tonight, as your breath slows and your thoughts soften, imagine yourself walking through those shadowed halls. A flicker of candlelight on polished stone, the quiet hush of centuries beneath your feet. And in the silence, perhaps you'll hear it too. Not a voice, not a sound, but a knowing, that in this place, carved in silence, something waits to be understood. Beneath the golden domes and beneath the gaze of saints in stained glass, there are stories. Stories not found in catechisms or official church texts, but whispered in footnotes and passed on through curious historians. Stories of artifacts once housed within the Vatican, and now, missing. You see, the Vatican is not just a place of prayer, it is a vault of the world's spiritual heritage. For centuries, pilgrims, kings and conquerors brought relics here. Some real, others believed to be. And over time, the line between legend and inventory blurred. Let's begin with one of the most curious tales, the chronovisor. Supposedly invented in the 1950s by Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk and physicist, the chronovisor was said to be a device that could view scenes from the past, not through time travel, but by capturing residual energy still present in the atmosphere. Ernetti claimed he had seen Christ's crucifixion through it. The device, he said, was dismantled and hidden by the Vatican to avoid its dangerous implications. Skeptics, of course, dismiss it all as fiction. But documents, photos, and testimonies, some authentic, some mysterious, continue to circulate. Was it an allegory for spiritual insight, or a glimpse into something far stranger? And what of the Ark of the Covenant? Some believe it never left Jerusalem. Others are convinced it made its way, quietly, through centuries, eventually hidden in the catacombs beneath Vatican Hill. While the Church has never officially acknowledged this, rumors have long pointed to restricted underground vaults and secret papal chambers where certain holy objects are kept out of public sight. Even Pontius Pilate's correspondence with Roman officials has been the subject of speculation. Ancient manuscripts allegedly describing the trial of Jesus in Pilate's own words, found in the 19th century, then quickly vanishing, are said by some to now reside in the Vatican's Archivum Secretum. And then there's the legend of the Spear of Destiny, the lance said to have pierced the side of Christ. While several claimants to this relic exist, including in Vienna and Armenia, a persistent rumor suggests that the original spear is, or once was, hidden beneath the Vatican, sealed away due to the myth that whoever possesses it wields world-changing power. Add to this the mysterious Codex of Enoch, a supposed ancient scroll detailing visions of angels, giants, and a pre-flood civilization. Fragments of the Book of Enoch exist, especially in Ethiopian Christian tradition, but a complete codex, written in early Aramaic or lost Hebrew script, that's something scholars only whisper about, and some suggest the Vatican may have it, deep in its underground halls. There are even claims about extraterrestrial artifacts, strange metallic scrolls or celestial texts, said to have been found and stored away. While these ideas stretch into the fringe, they reflect a central theme, that the Vatican holds more than it reveals. But perhaps the most unsettling are the stories of documents that have simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not lost to time, but quietly removed from archives, their existence scrubbed. Letters from heretical monks, accounts of visions deemed too dangerous, early gospels that paint a different picture of familiar events. Are they gone, or merely waiting? The Vatican's own explanation is often mundane: misplaced documents, reclassified entries, or forgeries. And sometimes, that's the truth. Yet the silence surrounding certain items, the reluctance to even discuss them, leaves a vacuum. And in that silence, legends grow. Now imagine, if you will, a corridor deep beneath St. Peter's Basilica. The air is thick and still. Torchlight flickers against stone. Iron gates guard rooms lined with ancient crates, parchment wrapped in silk, strange reliquaries humming with forgotten memory. No labels. No visitors. Just the quiet hum of secrecy. Could the relics be there? or were they ever real? In the end, what matters is not only what is hidden, but why it is hidden. The power of myth, of mystery, of belief itself, these are as valuable as any artifact. And perhaps that's what the Vatican protects most fiercely. Not an object, but the weight of meaning that such objects carry. A power that could shake foundations, or inspire generations. Let us now move forward, to explore another of the Vatican's great enigmas, the library. The Vatican Apostolic Library, known simply as the Vatican Library, is one of the most mysterious and prestigious collections of knowledge in the world. But beyond its public reading halls and academic catalogs lies something else, something deeper, quieter, and infinitely more intriguing. Founded officially in the 15th century but holding manuscripts that date back far earlier, the Vatican Library is said to contain over 1.1 million printed books, over 75,000 manuscripts, and hundreds of thousands of historical documents, many of which the public will never see. The public wing of the library is indeed impressive. Beautiful Renaissance halls filled with painted ceilings and carefully preserved texts. But it is what lies beyond the accessible shelves that draws the imagination of scholars and dreamers alike. Let us imagine for a moment that you are walking down a hallway few have entered. The light is dim. The smell of old parchment and polished wood lingers in the air. And at the end of the corridor, a door. Behind it, a vault of memory. Some say the Vatican Library holds the original letters of Mary Magdalene, writings that could suggest a different role for her in early Christianity. Others speak of lost Gospels, such as the Gospel of Judas or the Gospel of Thomas, preserved here in their entirety, offering alternate views of familiar stories. There are books written in unknown languages, such as the fabled Voynich manuscript, filled with undeciphered script and surreal botanical illustrations. Though officially held elsewhere, many believe the Vatican possesses similar works, texts that scholars have either failed to interpret or refused to translate publicly. Then there are the prophecies, not just those of Nostradamus or the well-known apparitions at Fatima, but lesser-known visions recorded by mystics, seers, and saints over the centuries. Hidden in drawers, annotated in the margins of devotional books, or locked in small folios bound in leather. And let's not forget the scientific texts, heretical in their time, preserved in secret. Books on astronomy, mathematics, and ancient machines. Da Vinci is said to have corresponded with figures inside the Vatican. Could there be diagrams, inventions, or even lost blueprints hidden here, ideas too advanced for their time? One of the most alluring legends is that of the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the Index of Forbidden Books. While it was officially abolished in 1966, the list once contained hundreds of works banned for their dangerous ideas. Though no longer enforced, copies of these texts, many annotated by inquisitors and Vatican officials, are said to remain in the shelves. Some believe editions have continued privately, creating a sort of unofficial index, one that evolves with the Church's shifting views on science, politics, and theology. But what makes the Vatican Library so profoundly mysterious is not just the content, but the access. Only select scholars, with special credentials and invitations, may enter the inner research rooms. Even then, they must request specific manuscripts by name and explain their purpose. And there are some volumes which cannot be requested at all. Their locations are known only to a handful of archivists, and even they may never open them. There are whispers of a private papal library, an even more restricted space containing documents passed down between popes, some handwritten, some encoded. This collection is said to include letters from emperors, confessions from saints, and perhaps even evidence of supernatural events, carefully examined, quietly stored, and never released. There are rumors of an ancient Egyptian papyrus that speaks of contact between early Christians and priests of Heliopolis, of Atlantean fragments transcribed into Latin by monks in the 12th century, even maps that depict lands before the last ice age. Is any of this provable? Not easily. And perhaps that's the point. The Vatican Library is more than a building. It is a symbol, a living paradox, a place where the sacred and the secret intertwine, where knowledge is not merely preserved, but protected, perhaps even withheld. As you drift deeper into sleep, let your mind wander down those silent halls, where time is measured not in seconds, but in centuries, where every shelf holds a doorway to a forgotten world, and where, perhaps, just behind one locked cabinet, lies the answer to one of the universe's oldest questions. In our next chapter, we'll explore the Vatican necropolis, the city of the dead beneath the Holy City. Beneath the magnificent dome of St. Peter's Basilica, under the marble, the altars, the gilded ceilings, lies another world. A hidden, ancient city, where the dead sleep in silence. This is the Vatican necropolis, or the Scavi, as it's often called, a sprawling burial complex that predates the basilica itself. Long before the grandeur of the Vatican rose above, this space was a humble cemetery, a field of graves carved into soft Roman soil. Most visitors to the Vatican walk its surface, never knowing that beneath their feet lies a labyrinth of crypts, tombs, and passageways, some over 2,000 years old. The necropolis was discovered in the 1940s, during secret excavations ordered by Pope Pius XII. His goal? To locate the tomb of St. Peter, the apostle and first pope, believed to be buried deep below the altar of the basilica that bears his name. What the excavators found was astonishing. They uncovered a whole underground city, preserved beneath centuries of construction. Mausoleums made of brick and stone. Ancient frescoes painted in reds and golds. Inscriptions in Greek and Latin. Offerings of coins and shells. Bones carefully arranged, as if still waiting for resurrection. And in the very heart of this underworld, a simple, unadorned grave, marked by an inscription that reads, "Peter is here." Whether this is truly the resting place of St. Peter is still debated. But the atmosphere of the place is undeniable. Down there, time seems suspended. The air is cool and damp. The stones whisper of early faith, of persecution, of hidden rituals performed in secret. The necropolis is not open to the general public. Entry is limited to a few small groups per day, and access requires advance permission. Those who descend do so in hushed reverence, flashlights flickering across bones and tiles, the weight of history pressing in from all sides. But the Vatican's underground world doesn't end there. Beneath various chapels and buildings, other catacombs wind their way through the earth. These are older still, once used by early Christians fleeing Roman persecution. They buried their dead in long corridors, stacked with niches, lit only by oil lamps and the hope of eternal life. Some say there are hidden vaults that even modern researchers cannot fully access, areas blocked off for structural reasons, or simply omitted from official maps. What lies in these forgotten corridors? Some claim sarcophagi of forgotten saints, or even pagan relics reabsorbed by the Church as it expanded through Rome. And then there are the legends. It is whispered that some tunnels stretch far beyond the Vatican's borders, connecting to ancient Roman aqueducts, or even leading to the Tiber River. Smugglers, monks, and pilgrims may have once used them, their secrets buried by time. A few believe these passages house lost documents, or were once used to shelter sacred objects during wars, invasions, or dark chapters in church history. Some even speak of an inner sanctum, a hidden chapel only the Pope may enter, where the bones of early martyrs are said to rest beside the earliest known Christian writings. And while most of these stories remain unverified, the truth is that we know very little about just how vast the Vatican's underground truly is. Imagine walking through one of these tunnels now, torch in hand, shadows dancing on carved stone. You pass a faded symbol, the Chi Rho, the early Christian monogram. Further on, a mosaic of a fish, the ancient sign of the faithful. Then, a sealed door, weathered but intact, covered in Latin script no one has translated in centuries. Is it just a tomb, or something more? Beneath the Vatican lies a city of the dead. But in its silence, there are stories, stories of faith, exile, mystery, and memory. Stories that wait, quietly, until someone comes close enough to listen. As we rise back to the surface, let us prepare to explore another of the Vatican's great enigmas, the hidden rooms of the Apostolic Palace, and what may be kept from public view. High above the crowds gathering in St. Peter's Square, above the glittering galleries of the Vatican museums, and even above the Sistine Chapel, lie mysterious rooms inaccessible to most. This is the Apostolic Palace, the official residence of the Pope. But even among the Vatican structures themselves, this palace is like a labyrinth. Most of its halls, corridors, and rooms have never been seen by tourists. Bronze doors, guards in Swiss uniforms, long corridors, carpets that muffle footsteps. Everything creates an atmosphere of ancient silence that hides countless untold stories. It is known that there are over 1,000 rooms in the palace. Among them are the pontiff's apartments, a private chapel, reception halls, archive rooms, a library, and numerous closed rooms that are never mentioned in guidebooks. What is in them? Some of them are the Pope's private offices and bedrooms, preserved in their original form since the Renaissance. They are sometimes called silent rooms because it was here that decisions were made that changed the course of history. Excommunications, dogmas, agreements with emperors. The walls have seen anger, prayers, fear, and inspiration. Others are veritable repositories of artifacts. Behind thick wooden doors are cabinets with gilded locks, chests inlaid with mother-of-pearl, scrolls written on thin parchment, and statues of gods brought here in ancient times. According to legend, one of these rooms holds tiny glass ampoules containing blood and sand from the Colosseum, collected during the first Christian martyrdoms. Another holds fragments of a meteorite given to the Vatican in the 12th century as a sign from heaven. There are also rooms where secret advisors once stayed. A private audience hall where meetings were held without protocol or witnesses. They say that even today, conversations take place there with representatives of states, special services, or spiritual orders that do not appear in any of the Pope's diaries. In one of the corridors leading to the north wing, there is a door without a sign. Former Vatican employees said that this room was never locked, and at the same time, no one dared to open it. It stands in the shadows, apart, but is not mentioned in any documents. Another mystery is the elevators and passageways that connect the palace to neighboring buildings. They are used by the Pope and his inner circle to quickly get to the Sistine Chapel, the library, or the archives. The cameras in these corridors do not record movement. The security systems are separate, old-fashioned, and unusual. Every night, these halls remain under close surveillance. But, does anyone really know what happens behind closed doors after midnight? Who else walks these corridors, where you can sometimes hear the creaking of wooden floors, when everyone seems to have been asleep for a long time? There are rumors about a room of reflection, where the personal letters of all popes over the past 500 years are kept. Others talk about a hall where religious artifacts are displayed that are forbidden to the general public. Images that are considered too powerful for believers, or documents that cast doubt on conventional history. And although these are just shadows of stories, there is something in the atmosphere of these walls. A wind that cannot be felt but moves the curtains. The faint smell of old books mixed with incense. Light falling from corners where there are no windows. And even if no one will ever know what is really hidden in these rooms, the very fact of their existence is awe-inspiring. The silence there is not empty. It speaks, and in it lies the memory of millennia. Translated with dpel.com, free version. In the heart of the Vatican's many mysteries, few tales are as haunting, or as controversial, as the prophecies of Saint Malachy. The story begins in the 12th century, with a quiet and deeply spiritual man from Ireland. His name was Malachy O'Morgair, Archbishop of Armagh, and a figure later canonized for his holiness and vision. But what sets Malachy apart from other saints is a document, shrouded in centuries of secrecy and fear, said to have been penned after a strange, mystical experience during a pilgrimage to Rome. According to legend, as Malachy visited the Eternal City, he was suddenly overcome by a vision, not just of the Church in his own time, but of every pope who would ever reign, all the way to the end of days. He is said to have written 112 cryptic mottos, each corresponding to a future pope, describing them in poetic, sometimes strange, phrases. These Latin inscriptions were brief, often metaphorical, and many believed them to be encoded messages about each pontiff's origin, personality, or significant acts. What makes the prophecy especially unsettling is that the list seems to end with the current or very near future pope. The final entry reads, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock through many tribulations, after which the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people." The end. This phrase has fueled centuries of speculation. Who is Peter the Roman? Is he symbolic or literal? Could this mean that the last pope will preside over not just the Church, but its collapse? Or the beginning of a transformation unlike any before? Interestingly, the prophecy wasn't published until 1595, more than 400 years after Malachy's death, when it was printed by a Benedictine monk. Its sudden appearance has led some scholars to question its authenticity. Was it a forgery created to influence papal elections? Or was it indeed kept secret by the Vatican, hidden for centuries due to its terrifying implications? Supporters of the prophecy point to eerie correspondences. For example, one pope was described as from the labor of the sun, and he was born during a solar eclipse and later buried during another. Another, from the midst of the moon, was elected during a full moon. Coincidence? Or something more? Then comes the uncomfortable realization: we are at the end of the list. According to the traditional interpretation, Pope Francis, or perhaps his immediate successor, is the final pontiff before the prophecy reaches its apocalyptic close. Of course, the Church has never officially recognized the prophecy. Vatican spokespeople have long dismissed it as a medieval curiosity, a misattributed text that belongs more to legend than doctrine. But many believers, mystics, and even former cardinals have spoken of it in hushed tones. Some suggest the prophecy is not about destruction, but renewal, the fall of an institution, perhaps, to give rise to a more spiritual church. Others whisper of a deeper truth, that within the walls of the Vatican, these prophecies are taken more seriously than is ever acknowledged. That secret councils have been held to prepare for the implications. That even popes have reflected on their place in the list, in moments of solitude. There are tales of one pope who, upon reading the full prophecy, wept. Another, who asked it be locked away again. And another, who placed a handwritten copy of it in his private library, under the symbol of a broken key. Whether myth, forgery, or true vision, the prophecies of Saint Malachi remain one of the most chilling and mysterious stories attached to the Vatican. Because if the prophecy is true, if the last pope truly stands among us now, then the Church, and perhaps the world, stands at the edge of something profound. And in the silence of the basilicas, in the flicker of the eternal flame, that final Latin line seems to echo, "The end." In a place so rooted in ancient tradition, surrounded by relics of saints and echoes of Scripture, it may come as a surprise to learn that the Vatican has long held a deep interest in the stars. High above the noise of Rome, nestled in the hills of Castel Gandolfo, sits one of the oldest astronomical research institutions in the world, the Vatican Observatory. Its origins date back to the late 1500s, when Pope Gregory XIII, the same pope who reformed the calendar, established a group of Jesuit scholars to study the heavens. Their task wasn't just scientific, it was spiritual. To understand the sky was, in a sense, to understand the order of God's creation. This dual reverence, for faith and for reason, has persisted across centuries. Today, the Vatican Observatory is staffed by Jesuit astronomers, many of whom hold advanced degrees in physics, astrophysics, and planetary science. Their mission? To explore the mysteries of the cosmos, from black holes to the origins of galaxies, and even the possibility of life beyond Earth. In 1990, the observatory expanded with the creation of the Vatican Observatory Research Group, based in Arizona. There, under the dark skies of the American Southwest, the Vatican operates the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, one of the most sophisticated in the world. And yet, despite its modern tools, a sense of wonder remains. One of the most intriguing aspects of the observatory's work is its engagement with the theological implications of extraterrestrial life. In interviews, Vatican astronomers have openly discussed the possibility that life could exist elsewhere in the universe, and that this would not contradict Christian doctrine. One Jesuit priest famously stated, "The discovery of intelligent life would not disprove God. It would simply expand our understanding of His creation." The idea that the Church, long seen as conservative and resistant to science, is now actively involved in exploring such questions surprises many. But within the Vatican walls, such paradoxes often coexist. There are stories, too, of hidden manuscripts in the Vatican Library that speak of unusual celestial events witnessed centuries ago. Comets that changed course, stars that flared brightly and then vanished. Some are thought to be early accounts of supernovae or meteor showers. Others remain unexplained. Some whisper of a deeper reason behind the Vatican's interest in the stars, that among its many secrets lies a lost text, possibly hidden in the archives, that speaks of beings from beyond the firmament. A fragment of writing, perhaps, from a forgotten monk, or a vision received by a saint. Naturally, the Church has never confirmed such a document exists. But the presence of ancient star charts, lunar maps, and cosmological diagrams, created not just by scientists but by monks and priests, suggests a long, secret fascination with what lies beyond. One cannot help but wonder what truths may be quietly studied behind those quiet stone walls. And perhaps it's fitting that in the silence of night, as Rome sleeps and the stars spin slowly overhead, the Vatican turns its gaze to the heavens, not in contradiction to faith, but as an extension of it. For in the eyes of those who believe, every distant galaxy and every flicker of starlight is a reflection of the same divine mystery that breathes through stained glass and sacred hymns. Beneath the splendor of St. Peter's Basilica, beneath the marble halls and golden domes of the Vatican, lies a world few ever see, a world carved in silence, darkness, and legend. This is the Vatican underground. a network of crypts, tunnels, secret rooms, and ancient passageways, some open to the public, others sealed for centuries. The most well-known of these is the Vatican necropolis, or Scavi, located directly beneath St. Peter's Basilica. It's here that archaeologists discovered the remains of what many believe to be the tomb of St. Peter, buried beneath layers of history, marble, and myth. Walking through the necropolis feels like stepping back in time. Narrow corridors lit dimly, walls lined with second-century mausoleums, faded frescoes, and Latin inscriptions. It is a place of reverence and whispers. But deeper still, beyond the areas known to historians and guides, legends speak of another level, accessible only to a select few. A labyrinth of sealed tunnels, said to contain forgotten relics, secret chapels, and even rooms once used for ancient rituals or guarded councils. One persistent rumor tells of a hidden vault called Archivum Secretum Apostolicum, the secret apostolic archive. While the archive itself is real and well documented, housing centuries of church documents, there are stories of deeper levels, inaccessible to scholars. These, according to the whispers, may hold lost gospels, ancient prophecies, or even artifacts from the early Christian world, removed from the public eye to preserve their secrecy. Other tales describe a tunnel that once led from the Vatican to Castel Sant'Angelo, used as an escape route for popes in times of siege. This passage, built in the 13th century and known as the Passetto di Borgo, still exists, partially visible to visitors, yet many believe it connects to older, more mysterious routes. And there's another legend, stranger still, of a deep chamber, far beneath the Vatican gardens, where an eternal flame is said to burn. No one knows its origin, only that it's tended by a secret order and has never been allowed to go out. Could these tunnels hide records from the earliest days of the Church? Proof of miracles long buried? Or something even older, remnants from a pre-Christian time, sealed away for fear of what they might reveal? One former Swiss guard anonymously described being assigned to an area beneath the library, where he was told never to enter a certain corridor, a hallway that, he said, gave off a coldness not of temperature, but of presence. True or imagined, these stories persist. The Vatican, by its very nature, guards its mysteries. And perhaps that is what draws so many to wonder what lies beneath. For every answer uncovered, 10 more questions remain. And in the quiet spaces below the world's smallest country, where time stands still and the weight of centuries presses in, it's easy to imagine that something sacred, or forbidden, still waits in the dark. As the final candle burns low and the echo of footsteps fades through marble halls and hidden tunnels, we return from the depths of one of the most enigmatic places on earth, the Vatican. A city within a city, a symbol of divine authority, and a vault of ancient knowledge. The Vatican is far more than its basilicas and museums. It is a place where faith and secrecy intertwine, where history is written in whispers, and every stone seems to guard a story. We have wandered through myths of lost documents and secret rituals, followed shadows through underground tunnels, and gazed at paintings that may hold more than meets the eye. Some mysteries remain unsolved. Perhaps they always will. But that, too, is the magic. For in a world filled with answers, we still crave mystery. We seek wonder. And the Vatican, with all its legends, truths, and timeless questions, gives us just that. So now, as you drift into sleep, let the silence of ancient libraries, the glow of candlelight on marble, and the distant hum of Gregorian chant lull you deeper. May your dreams carry you beyond time and stone, where secrets sleep and stories wait to be told. Good night, traveler of mysteries.